All right, Matt, let's get into this report from Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae, what's going on over there, Fannie Mae?
They cover some kind of demographic shifts. And honestly, when I think about the long-term prospects of the housing market and really of housing in general, I keep coming back to this idea that we are on the verge of some enormous demographic shifts. Yeah, this shift isn't going to be felt and is not being felt like someone flipped a switch, but even gradual changes are going to have a big impact, especially when we're talking about baby boomers. Again, these are talking about baby boomers, but in the 10-year time span they cover, I've been thinking a lot about shifting numbers of the 18 to 34 cohort. Around the end of this decade, maybe we could see a dip in apartment demand correlated with lower birth rates during the Great Recession. This possibility has been noted in some long-term projections. I haven't seen some, but it's been included in a number of different factors that are projecting what property values or the multifamily market or housing demand, or really the last time I heard it mentioned was like colleges are getting a little bit scared of what's going to happen in 8 years when all of these kind of recession era people are coming of age and demand really drops off. But I think that could that's the same kind of age demographic, maybe 4 years younger, whatever, as apartment demand. I think the jury is definitely still out on that, and it may be a marginal difference, if any, because I was looking at birth rates, and it doesn't seem like there is a clear, dramatic drop-off during the Great Recession.
Wasn't there kind of a change in that story recently where actually birth rates kind of surprised to the upside?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, there was a little bit more of an increase in birth rates, more than people predicted. So depending on how you slice it, things could go differently, but it definitely is something I'm thinking about how. And the millennial cohort is bigger than Gen Z, and that following cohort after Gen Z, that may be a little bit smaller still. So we're still kind of dealing with a little bit of a mystery and a little bit of an echo, the reverberations of the baby boomer generation. I said, any change related to baby boomers are almost always going to be more impactful than your piddling Gen Zs or Gen Ys or maybe even Gen Xs, which
they always get left out.
That's why I love them the most.
They're just doing their thing.
Oh, man. To kind of return to baby boomer, what the point is that they're making in this commentary is the implications of growing numbers of baby boomers, specifically a growing population of over 75, which is going to be different in every state. And they kind of talk about how, like, in some places, especially in Florida, some markets in Florida, like in Sarasota, are significantly higher proportion and higher proportion now and higher proportion in 10 years of 75 and over.
Over the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to be a dramatic change just to demographics and the economy in so many different ways, from wealth transfers from one generation to the other, to baby boomers selling small businesses or large businesses, to moving to retirement or back home to be with family, to just less people. The largest demographic, the second largest now, I guess, to millennials, are just if they're not already out of the workforce, which we already saw an acceleration of that in COVID, but there's going to be a lot more exiting the workforce over the next couple of years.
Well, and I think, too, the implication they directly point to is senior housing, whether it's like a skilled nursing facility where it's really kind of plugged in as a nursing home, or it is, gradations
and
of those communities.
There's a lot of different options, whether it's just 55 up
that's something I've really been thinking of too. Is like maybe apartment demand is going to go down, but it's almost certain that senior housing demand
or demand from senior citizens at apartments.
And that is true. But the Fannie Mae article really specifically singled out senior housing as this area where we're almost certainly going to see more demand. And what's interesting is that, like, I've heard this story for the past really like 20 years. It's like it's coming.
Silver tsunami.
And then like it hadn't come with the strength. I think there's aging in place. I think that baby boomers are eternally youthful. They're babies. They're always babies.
Oh yeah. It's like exactly.
So there was a cultural shift. I think that coincided with the aging of baby boomers that maybe are a little bit more independent than previous generations. But I still think senior housing is well, there was some overbuilding of senior housing, kind of anticipation, and it was like they weren't filling up because interesting.
But it's like the availability is there, and so I think it's going to have. I think senior housing could be one of the stronger performers of the next 10, 15 years for sure.